Commissioner Brody.
Yes, I'm going to put both you and Bill on the spot tonight. Since Bill spends a fair amount of time in Annapolis, and I'm going to see if he's heard any inside gossip, and you, as a member ex officio that sits on the school board. Since I read a piece in the paper, it was kind of shocked me, since this year we asked all departments that's being funded by Allegany County to try to hold the line, that the Board of Education is going to come, apparently, and ask us for an additional $500,000 for a problem that I didn't know that existed in Allegany County, and I hope that it sure doesn't, but being a father of two children that recently graduated from Allegany County Public Schools, and going to be soon a grandfather of someone that's going to have a child in Allegany County Public Schools. Have you heard anything of any issues of putting resource officers in all schools throughout the state? And Commissioner, I just asked you about this last week, and it was kind of, you was working with a deal with the sheriff was heading up, and now all of a sudden a problem has arose in a matter of a few days.
There was one bill filed strictly in the Senate, no companion bill in the House, and it was looking at putting basically armed guards in all schools, and it made it nowhere. It didn't get out of the committee. They just didn't think that was truly a good idea, and they wanted more time to be able to study the issue.
As for an incident in the schools, Dr. Cox has said that our schools are safe. There hasn't been an incident. There is one school board member who believes that we can't afford not to protect our children. I don't want to say at all costs, but they have come up with a plan of 5 resource officers and some mental health. I tend to believe that we need to get a professional opinion about public safety. Public safety is not, and I repeat, public safety is not the charge of the Board of Education.
Okay.
The top law enforcement officer in Allegany County is Sheriff Craig Robertson. So I've reached out to him, asked him to come together, put a group together, and come up with some form of recommendation. And we did have that meeting on Monday, and I thought it was very, very productive to have the state police there, City of Cumberland, City of Frostburg, the security administrator from the Board of Education. And at the end of the day, we need to slow down and figure out a plan. Dr. Root did talk about a plan, a comprehensive plan. So, Commissioner, yes, it's true they're going to come and ask for $500,000, but Dr. Root even said we need to have a comprehensive plan, and we need to study this and figure out what exactly is the right course of action. Any type of a knee-jerk reaction of what has happened in Sandy Hook, or what has happened at Columbine, or what has happened at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had over 100 officers protecting Virginia Tech. Columbine actually had an officer in the school. Sandy Hook was in, for all intents and purposes, according to the sheriff, had done everything right. They had the school locked. The guy broke in. Now, don't get me wrong, it's something we need to study. We need to get it right. But please do not feel that a future grandchild is going to be in jeopardy in Allegany County. I think there are 98,000 schools, public schools. You add in the charters and other organizations, we're up to about maybe 120,000 schools. The chances of that happening are very slim. However, we do need to plan for that day. And so, yes, they're going to come and ask for it, but it's going to be my recommendation until Sheriff Craig Robertson, who is our elected law enforcement, the gentleman who's in charge of public safety, make some form of a recommendation to us.
I think that's a very wise way to look at it. It's sort of hard to understand how you put a dollar amount on a plan that you haven't created yet.
Wait a
So, I would hate to see educational dollars wasted on hiring some people on a knee-jerk reaction before they actually had a plan, and then have to come back and say, well, we need more money because the plan we have isn't working. So, I would prefer to leave it in the hands of the professionals also.
Yes, and that answered a lot of my questions, and since everyone in this room well knows, we're not the federal government. Our money does come from the citizens of Allegany County, and I am not in favor of throwing money at something just to throw money at it. So, and I do want my grandchild and any child to be safe, but I just didn't realize there was such an urgency that we was going to start throwing $500,000 at something we wasn't sure what we're throwing it at, so.
Well, there was a very famous lady by the name of Nancy Pelosi who said we had to pass the bill to see what's inside the bill. And we know exactly what that has happened with our health care, and it's unraveled. You're right, we are not the federal government. We are not Nancy Pelosi. We are not Harry Reid. And we are not going to run Allegany County the way the federal government runs it. And to give you a good example, you do what this administration has done by keeping taxes low, by reducing the size of government by 18% without sacrificing services, and asking every department to hold the line and do their lion's share. What happens? You get an upgrade in your bond rating. Standard & Poor's and Moody's just came back and said Allegany County is the way government should be running. And in a world where the federal government's being threatened with a second downgrade, the state of Maryland is there. I'm telling you, Allegany County is the right way to be running the government, and we certainly don't need the federal government through Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid. Simple as that. So rest assured, we will get a recommendation from Sheriff Robertson, and I've actually asked staff to reach out to the health department and ask for Dr. Raver to give us maybe, and this is new, Dr. Raver, I don't believe you've made the phone call yet, but Dr. Raver to give us some kind of a recommendation on mental health. I'm a firm believer that 30 years ago when we closed down all the state mental facilities, instead of having a plan, not a knee-jerk reaction to something, but having a plan, what we ended up doing was we emptied out these hospitals for their rights. However, what has ended up happening is our detention centers are filling up, our jails are filling up, our homeless problem, and then in the case of the Sandy Hook, it was a mother who was having a hard time with her son through mental illness. This is a mental illness problem. So the school board is correct in that we need to look at mental health, but we're going to, before we make any action on any kind of budget, we're going to reach out to Dr. Raver and get her opinion on what happens. If you remember last year, commissioners, the health department came and they needed us to help them out with a mental health program. And luckily, we were able, through Jason's creativity, to be able to put that mental health program back into the plan. That's what's important. Mental health is the answer here. There's to have a knee-jerk reaction, to go off and, I just, anyhow. Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi do not run Allegany County, and we're going to make sure that the federal government, as screwed up as they are, it's not going to happen in Allegany County, and we're going to make wise decisions off of the advice of the professionals, Dr. Raver and Sheriff Robertson.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.